Well, welcome to Uncensored Conservatism. This is episode 133. Today we're going to look at Project 2025 again. Exactly what's in it, Chapter 5, Part 1. And we're going to do this. But anyway, Chapter 5 is about Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security. It was written by Ken Cuccinelli. He was a former Trump administration official and Virginia Attorney General. And we are going to look at this in two parts. Okay, so it essentially calls for the dismantling of the department, eventually, and moving its parts to other departments. But then creating a separate new department specifically dedicated to immigration, border security, and citizenship. It does not call for the elimination of the Coast Guard, the TSA, Secret Service, FEMA, or anything like that. Anyway, that would be the ideal and would require the approval of these guys. Now, Cuccinelli does say that until that day arrives, the work has to be done by a reoriented and phased down Homeland Security Department. Customs and Border Patrol should be combined with ICE, or Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service. The Office of Refugee Settlement should be moved from Health and Human Services to Homeland Security. And the Office of Immigration Review should be moved from the Justice Department. In this way, all border enforcement, customs, and immigration or refugee functions would be under this new department. But Homeland Security does other things. Here, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency would be moved from Department of Homeland Security to the Department of Transportation. FEMA would be moved to the Department of the Interior or possibly even the Transportation Department. The Coast Guard, take your pick, it could be moved to the Justice Department or the Defense Department. The Secret Service Protective Detail would be moved to the Justice Department. And their Financial Crimes Unit would be moved to the Treasury Department. The TSA would be privatized. Other aspects would be moved to other departments. In none of this, no federal function is being completely eliminated. It's just moved around and made more functional. So the DHS was formed in the aftermath of 9/11, and it's our newest cabinet department. Unfortunately, it's become a bloated, bureaucratic, and expensive. Prioritizing border security and immigration enforcement can best be done through a single new department currently, because the whole scheme is fragmented right now. For example, the cybersecurity component has been weaponized to censor speech and to affect elections. There's too many warnings of election interference and disinformation while nefarious actors actually are targeting our critical infrastructure. It argues that most DHS grants should be eliminated and all departments should be non-union based on national security grounds. Ineffective, expensive, and problematic aspects should be closed, and all employees move to where they will be most effective. With respect to grants, most of them are distributed through FEMA. Any grant must be conditioned on enforcement of immigration laws, including the recognition of ICE detainers. You want a grant for that new fire truck, you work with ICE. Further, it argues that all grant applicants fully comply with E-Verify procedures when hiring their personnel. If a state or a municipality, to get the grant, you must comply with all ICE requests. That's the carrot and the stick in practice. You want the money, you play ball. Cuccinelli argues that no one should use their discretionary ability to increase H-2B visas for seasonal non-agricultural workers and not to use their discretion in support of the H-2 eligibility list of countries. The current system of discretion allows favoritism based on nationality. To secure the nation's border, use of military assets is suggested and it's even allowed under current federal law. Also, accurate and detailed immigration and border security statistics are a must to measure things. And he argues for the transparency in this area without interference from these guys. He wants to resurrect the horseback border patrol. They, you may remember, were falsely accused of whipping Haitian refugees, and many were dismissed. They need to be rehired back with back pay, and the horseback patrol expanded. They get to places where trucks and jeeps and other things can't get. ICE, Border Patrol, and Immigration Services all have the authority to issue a notice to appear. Project 2025 says those caught illegally entering the country should be turned over to ICE, and that they and them alone should issue the notice to appear. As far as detention, there should be a national standard, and states should be told to shut up in this area. For example, some states may not allow a tent city detention centers when it may be perfectly feasible to do so. Cartels currently take advantage of aged facilities at points of entry. Project 2025 suggests state-of-the-art, non-intrusive inspection technology. Now, the Biden administration closed thousands of immigration cases that were slated for expedited removal. The result was that thousands of illegal immigrants were set free in the country. Any open case should remain open and then adjudicated. Now, in what may be the first priority in the task of this man, Tom Homan, ICE should immediately take custody of all illegal immigrants with a felony record who committed any crime of violence, a DUI, who are repeat immigration offenders, or anyone with suspected ties to terrorism for likely deportation. T and U visas should be eliminated. These apply to victims of alleged trafficking or who experience violence. Project 2025 correctly points out that S visas are available for these purposes, which are for alien witnesses and informants. The bonding of cases needs reform. It simply translates into catch and release, where the illegal immigrant disappears, never to be heard from again, or go on to rape and kill some Americans. It wants to see a decrease in the number of student visas issued annually and cease relying on colleges to do the vetting, and belly aching here. Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI, should focus on smuggling, human trafficking, and cross-border crime. ICE deportation officers should be granted carte blanche to operate anywhere in the country, even without a warrant where possible, because it is allowed in some cases. ICE has limited use of expedited removal within 100 miles of the border. That has to be eliminated, as this is simply policy, it's not the law. Cuccinelli notes that so-called blackie warrants, or writs issued by federal immigration judges, should be issued to enforce ICE detainers, and that it can be used to overcome so-called sanctuary localities. And Jesus Christ, there's a lot of them in the Northeast and Northwest. He also states that such warrants can be used for workplace enforcement. There should be at least 100,000 beds for detention centers, and an additional 20,000 expedited removal officers. The Citizenship and Immigration Services should be a vetting agency for asylum claims, since most of today's border jumpers, if they're not criminals or drug dealers, are asylum seekers. Instead, the services have been used for granting temporary protection status and immigration parole. Also, the denaturalization unit should be reactivated for those who were granted parole for whatever, under fraudulent circumstances. Well, that's going to piss off this person who apparently married her brother, or so the rumor goes. Immigration benefit fraud should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. All training should be conducted at so-called flexi locations, and perhaps there should be more of those centers. Family unification and luck of the draw immigration should be scrapped in favor of merit-based immigration. Chain migration should extend only to the nuclear family. And then when it comes to employment, total use of E-Verify. Of course, construction of a border wall is a given, especially at strategic locations, and maintained and monitored. Perhaps most controversial, the government should cease giving grants to NGOs, non-government organizations, that bring in these illegal aliens, transport them, or house them throughout the country. Trump's remain in Mexico policy, sure to piss off Mexico, needs to be reintroduced. State and local governments should be encouraged to assist in immigration enforcement. The states cannot enact de facto immigration laws. This is a federal power. It's in the Constitution. Seriously, read it. As for those sanctuary locations or states, there should be financial disincentives for doing so. Now, I don't know how it's going to work, but the feds disperse shitloads of grants to states and cities. It should be obvious by now that this entire part of Project 2025 does not call for the mass deportation program that Homan and Trump envisioned. Instead, it lays out some reforms, some likely to occur, some not. Some will require congressional approval through legislation. Some can be achieved through executive orders or even changing department guidelines. Most are going to require money. It's a policy of getting a handle on the situation by prioritizing deportations, securing the border, and deterring future illegal immigration, while reforming the existing immigration and visa system to meet the needs of America. Is this some kind of controversy? It is likely to people like this, or this, or this one, or this one. I will say that Project 2025 does not address DACA at all, except in a few cases. Nor does it call for the mass deportation of every illegal immigrant in this country. Nor does it discuss birthright citizenship at all. I mean, will there be a pathway to citizenship somewhere down the line? Only time will tell. But that's it for today. Have a great one and a more pleasant tomorrow.